Hi students, Professor Laney here. I'm here to do Chapter 2, and it's part of Unit 1 of our foundations. But again, Chapter 2 is all about supporting all learners. Now, it's kind of interesting in special ed how everything was so separate for a long time, and then they were allowing students to be educated at all, students with disabilities, and now it's how do we really incorporate everything and looking at the rules for all students, not just some students. And isn't it fair if we're talking full inclusion, then all the rules are the same? So I like to use the analogy of playing a board game. I mean, I don't know if you like to play, you know, Monopoly or Life or any sort of board game that you've played with your family, your friends, or your kids. Um, Everybody uses the same rules, right? Because you can't have two sets of rules for one game. How's that fair? And so this also breaks down the fact that some people will say, well, I didn't know. So if we really level the playing field and look at the different levels of supports and provide a framework for not just the students but the teachers, then really this is how it should have been the whole time. But, you know, it just took a while to get there, which is okay. Again, Chapter 2. I want to start off by saying Chapter 2 is a doozy. Okay, there was only about 17 course terms in Chapter 1. There's about 38, so that's double. It might seem a little bit heavy, but at the same time, I think we can do it. Just make sure you keep in mind that this is for all learners. This is really the newest, biggest push for special ed, is to make sure that all students are considered, because again, even our normal or typically developed students also need supports at some time. So maybe you might even have a student who's gifted in English and math, but when it comes to social studies or something like that, they might need a second or even third level of support. So look at that. You know, it really just, again, levels the playing field that we all need help sometimes, and it really gives everybody the idea that life is equitable and we don't have to pretend it's not. Okay? We can make it fair, even though it doesn't seem that way, but we can make it that way. So I'm really excited that this chapter is right in there, Chapter 2. Excuse me. Okay, so in our introduction, I'm sorry, just looking for my coffee. Our introduction, I just want you to make sure that, again, the quote that every child can learn and must learn, yeah. Because what happens when you don't? Your world after is closed to you. You make less money, you're less successful in even social situations. And so having a universal set of education for all children, and I mean all children, right? That's how it should be, and that's how it makes the best outcomes for everybody. Excuse me. A child's future is dependent on their education, and all children need help. So I put this last bullet in that says we all share neurodiversity, right? So again, even your most polished, valedictorian, a high-functioning student might have a debilitating fear of spiders or like sweaty gym shorts or something silly, but at the same time, that is their neurodiversity. That's my neurodiversity. I've got issues, you've got issues. If you don't like your food touching together, if you've ever cut a tag out of a shirt, if you don't like certain smells or textures, that's part of neurodiversity. Again, supporting all learners. It includes neurodiversity. Let's see here. Now, the chapter is broken down into different sections, just like every chapter, but the first part is high quality education. We have to start with the assumption that there's quality in education. Now, some of you might be rolling your eyes at this point, but yes, some of our teachers were great, some of them weren't, okay? But a lot of these frameworks that are set up helps weed out those bad teachers too. So, really excited about this. So, excuse me. Okay. So, next is evidence-based practices. Now, evidence-based practices is a fancy word for proof. We have to prove that the things that we're doing are working, or otherwise we're not going to do it. So think of it as like the medical model. Teachers have to use techniques and interventions that actually have worked through research and proving and doing the same test in the same system over and over again. If we had a drug that helped cancer patients but only helped some of the time and maybe not all of the time, why would we keep giving it to them? Same thing with education. We need to have the same set of standards and practices between every school at every grade level. Makes sense, right? And again, teachers really need to look exactly what they're doing every time, okay? Because if you start, it's like a recipe, right? You can make lasagna, right? No matter what. You can make it 100 different ways, 1,000 different ways. But your mom makes the lasagna, right? It could be tacos, it could be whatever, right? Or pozole or whatever, right? But if she changes it a little bit, you know, right? It's okay, but it's not the same. Same thing in the classroom. You have to follow the same rules to get the same results. And again, this helps identify the teachers keep everything the same and the students need some support. This is what it does. It helps identify what part needs more supports, needs more intervention, needs more help. Now, how do we know things really work? Okay, you really have to take the old ways and then the new ways and then test them against each other, right? So if you have two classrooms, let's say there's two fourth grade classrooms in a school that's challenged, right? Maybe they're low SES, maybe they're in economically disadvantaged, maybe they're in a culturally depressed area, I don't know, right? You keep one class exactly the same and you take the other class and you add these new techniques. Well, if this class that has the old techniques starts performing better, then you just stick with the old techniques. But if the new techniques come in and they start performing better, what do? Right? Start doing this. However, you should probably test that a bunch more times. It could just been a fluke, right? And that happens too. Maybe these guys, the new technique people were just excited with the new techniques. Doesn't mean that it was actually the techniques, but if you prove this time and time again that these work, then yes, they work. So these teachers have to get the new techniques and put them into place. And so Common Core is one of those things. And so again, look at the supports that the teachers are getting as well. Some teachers did not get supports their first year or two that it rolled out. So now that it's out a little bit more comfortably and it's been out for a couple of years, people are more comfortable with it, teachers are more comfortable with it, and now all those rules and new techniques are getting put into place and you're seeing more and more student success already, right? Actually, some of our disability categories are getting smaller, which is kind of interesting. So again, these new techniques will help identify not so much learning disabilities, but look at people who just have different learning style. So again, you guys know your learning style now after those first assessments. So maybe you don't need extra special supports, but somebody just needs to put it in your way of learning, right? That's a new technique, okay? Again, teachers have to follow the right steps. And I know it's hard, right? But again, it's like a laboratory. If everything remains the same and one thing changes, then you can focus on that one thing. But if all the rules change or the recipe changes, you can't tell what actually worked, right? It's like when your friend tells you, oh, I started drinking a bunch of water and I feel great. But they also started taking a vitamin. Well, which one is it that made the actual difference? Same thing with the classroom. Make sure you know these course terms. Evidence-based practices. It means tested. They've been tested and proven that they work. Okay. Randomized controlled trials is one of those ways that they take one group that stays exactly the same and they randomly control it in this environment. They give a new class that. Okay. And I'll give you an example of that in a minute. Fidelity of implementation, that's a fancy word for saying just do the steps and do it right and do it consistently. Okay. Now this video I'm not going to go through, but I want you guys to watch this on your own. First of all, it's a great video. Okay. It helps adults and kids. But in there, she talks about randomized controls trials on how they can prove a new technique actually works. And this technique is mindset, meaning like, are you positive or negative in your mind? Or are you a pessimist or an optimist? Do you think that the world's a good place or the world's out to get you? And when it comes to kids' mindsets, it's all that stuff when people say, oh, you're so smart. You're so beautiful. You're so smart. Well, guess what? The more that you praise a child for just showing up, the least work they actually do. People don't see it that way, but when you praise a child for effort, like, hey, you know, I know that didn't really work out, but I saw that you tried. You really concentrated. I saw it on your face. Your tongue was even sticking out. You're really trying hard. But we can try again. I'm really proud of you for giving it your all. Those are the kids that will go the extra mile. And watch that video. It's so awesome. One of my favorites. Okay, so that's our evidence-based practices. Again, we're not bringing this up unless it actually was proven to work. Okay. Second, 2.2, large-scale assessments. Okay, remember, assessments is a fancy word for tests. So large scale means school-wide, district-wide, statewide, big stuff, right? Not just like a quiz or, okay? So again, large scale assessments, this is like the testing, right? Testing in April when all the classes test, right? And it really helps figure out if the teachers are doing their job. It really does. I mean, it's sometimes they look at it as the child's outcome, and yes, it does measure how a child answers those questions or how the student answers those questions, but it also will poke holes in the fact that maybe there's 5 fourth grade teachers, but only 2 of them are doing the right strategies that they were trained to do. Okay, so when it's done right, it really helps the students and the school and the teachers. Okay, now again, you're gonna see this, the Elementary and Secondary Education Act, or called No Child Left Behind, or NCLB. Okay, you might hear me say NCLB or No Child Left Behind. That's basically what came out in 2001 that said the academic standards are not up to the students, they're up to the teachers. And there's a school accountability report card. And we'll talk about that in a sec. Okay, at the end of the year testing, it measures the students' standards, right, what they've learned. But if they're not being taught properly and they don't have the right accommodations, that will also show up as well. And students with disabilities used to not be able to do that, and now they're in together with the right supports. Like, so for example, my son, he's in a mainstream class, he has an IEP, he's ADHD severe, and he takes these tests, and I tell you what, we just got the test results back from the end of the year test, and he did not do very well, not at all. Now, his report card says he did pretty well. So there's a discrepancy between the state tests and the report card. So I'm really excited to sit with the IEP team and say, hey, so what techniques were you guys not utilizing here? How were you not supporting the student? Because his report card says, good job, buddy, you made annual progress. The test said, no, you didn't pass the 3rd grade. So that doesn't show you necessarily the gap in the student. Yes, he answered the questions wrong. But if you have a student who's severe ADHD, do they need extra accommodations? Yes. And did you provide them? Maybe not. So does it make the test valid? Maybe. We'll see. So again, and by the way, here's a little tip. You can opt out of those tests. You can opt out of those tests. You can sign a waiver and you don't even have to take it, right? The end of the year is different than like the statewide testing, but again, know your rights, and I'll talk to you guys about that as when we come into that questions about. But again, the standards are higher, students need to work harder. And I think that's, again, if that's the same for all students across the board, it's okay. Yeah. Now again, know your terms here, standardized tests, you guys know what those things are, but again, these are your terms here. High stakes, actually let's go back. High stakes just means that it's going to actually change some programming for the school district or state, meaning if they're really blowing it, then we're going to need some really hardcore interventions, okay? Minimum competency exams, basically, did you pass the 3rd grade? We'll see, right? And mandatory exit exams. Now, this is a huge source of controversy that students, maybe even our students identified with special needs, aren't really passing an exit exam. So we'll talk about right here, the Disability Rights International is a big advocate for abolishing the exit exam. I didn't have one when I went to school. Did you guys have one? Maybe you did. Maybe you didn't. But is it equitable? Maybe it is. Maybe it's not. So we'll see how things kind of pan out. Things are changing rapidly in this area, sometimes slowly, but rapidly when it comes to that. So the journal assignment this week, and I did put that in the journal as well, is you're going to watch the following video clip. It talks about a school report card, okay? Then you're going to get your school's report card. And yeah, it's pretty awesome. I'll show you really quick what it looks like. And here's my son's school. And it should be really, really easy to find. Now, you can pick your school, any school that you went to K through 12, or you can pick your kid's school right now. Let's see if where's a picture of him. He made it. One day he's walking back with the principal back from the office. He made the website. It's hilarious. Okay, that's slow. Let's see where it is. It's a cute school. They try. I think they do. The community is really nice. The families and the parents and the kids are sweet. Let's see. There he is right there. Walking back with the principal. Yeah. So here, about our school. Okay, there should be, look at this, school accountability report card. Now, Most people don't know. Look, it's English and Spanish. Now, some districts like Santa Ana might have it at their district website and not at the school, but you're going to get, look at this, 10 pages. Now, it starts with all the basic stuff, how many students are there, blah, blah, blah. This will also tell you students with disabilities, percent. Well, didn't we say? And all the grades, teachers with credential. Ooh, look at this. In the entire district, there was one teacher without a full credential. Isn't that crazy? And you're going to keep going down and see what's going on down here. Okay. I want to see what you guys see because there's a lot of different things that I see in here. But I also want to point out something kind of cool. This will tell you adequate yearly progress. All right. I want you to look at that. And also, let's see what else we got. Salaries. Beginning teacher salary. The district pays 45 and a similar district would be 41. So Tustin pays a little bit higher. Average principal's salary for the elementary school. Yeah, I don't think she has her PhD. I think it's a master's in administration. So, or if you've been there for a while, you're going to be making this much. So there you know, right? And it tells you percentage of the budget is 41%, and in other districts they pay less. The percentage budget for administrative salaries is 6. So this district pays well. Okay. So again, excuse me, that's Quizlet. Let's go back to Prezi. Make sure you're looking up at any school that you're interested in. It could be yours or your kids. But again, I put some prompts, just some questions in there, and make sure you complete it by Friday. Okay. So that's large scale assessments. So safe schools. Again, if we're supporting our learners, they have to be in a safe environment. Now, bullying has been a hot topic for quite some time, and it happens to us or it's because of us. And quite frankly, some of us have been both. Now, some of you are going to be like, oh, no, I've never been bullied. If you've said to even your sibling, your younger sibling, oh, you're dumb, you don't know anything, that could be construed as bullying. Now, I'm not saying go overboard, but just say if you think that you've never been a bully, think again. There's been times even in your mind that you've been super judgy, and it's okay. But we need to just acknowledge it and look at the damage and just move on, right? I like the term God is in the language and the devil's in the details. And so sometimes when you say, sometimes when people say, oh yeah, my kid is 11 years old. Well, are they really old or are they 11 years of age? That's why I do like some of my English learners because you guys have more of that really nice phrasing. And that's true, right? That child has reached 11 years of age. They're not 11 years old. So again, God is in the language. So, but in the details, it's like if you say, oh, that child is 11 years of age, but they're really dumb on the inside, that's the devil in the details. So again, language really matters, and especially when it comes to bullying. Okay, there are different roles: the bully, the victim, and the bystander. And I want to make sure that you guys know that if you're just watching it happen, you're part of the problem. Okay, and that's what's happening a lot here too. A lot of people don't know how to act when bullying's happening. So again, it's hard, and I would like to empower everybody just to do the best that you can, right? And I know it's hard, okay? Then there's types: physical, verbal, relational. This is a big deal. We'll talk about it in a sec. Sexual and cyber. This is a big deal. So now these next little clips here. This is that's an intro to the documentary, and this is the documentary. So you guys are welcome to watch that. They're really awesome. The music video is really, really cute too. And actually, let's see if I can click through. Well, let me do it. It'll take a sec. They're like, yay, I've been in a music video. Awesome. Guys are... Yeah, not cool. Oh, buddy. Oh. See, that's nice. She's helping. Could be anything. Yeah, so I'll let you guys click through that. I actually like it. Kind of nice. It's pretty catchy. But I think it's good because it's kind of in that language of the teens can understand. It's kind of like a hip hop, like nice little jam. Again, make sure you know what the actual term is. Relational. Now, it's the thing that more girls tend to do than boys. Boys tend to be a little bit more physical, but relational has to do with a relationship, like either trying to I remember when I was in school a million years ago, it was like somebody wrote a letter and then signed your name on it that said that. Whatever, Sarah, she has like boogers hanging out her nose. Like whatever, right? But the relational bullying is that relationship kind of situation. It's either to trying to make somebody look bad or that kind of situation. So make sure you know that term as well. And then bullies either externalize or internalize. Victims either externalize or internalize. So when you have like girls sometimes who do like have like eating disorders or start cutting on themselves or get depressed, that's internal. Okay. Externalizing could be anything from even tagging, destruction of property, fighting, vandalism, anything like that. So you might see that in girls too. I'm not saying that boys don't get depressed and girls don't fight, but yeah, you'll see it in both ways. Okay. All right. So it's just a big deal, right? How do we expect all learners to learn if they don't feel safe? Okay. Now, dropout prevention. This is another one too. Again, if a student's not engaged, now trust me, student engagement is huge in college. I mean, they push us on that. So if a student's not engaged in high school, yeah, they're gone. And I know there's a bunch of different reasons why people drop out of high school, but at the same time, you know, the school can really intervene there. If, again, the teacher and the counselors are really have their head on, like, and they're being proactive. And I know it's hard, but again, there's a lot that we can do, especially if about 17% of students who go to high school don't earn a diploma. It seems weird to me. That's nationwide. And about 7,000 students drop out daily. How is that even possible? 7,000 students drop out. 1.3 million per year? Jeez Louise. You guys can probably hear that, so apology. Okay, again, multiple reasons, but at the same time, there are warning signs. The students just checked out, they don't have friends, they don't really make an effort to show up on time, or they're not even really showering, or their family doesn't support them. There's a lot of warning signs, okay? All right, so again, I put those course terms there. Let's see if we can scroll in here. These are the OC stats for 2014, and there is one high school in here that has 100% graduation rate. This is the dropout rates, and so it'll tell you graduation versus dropout. Okay, let's see here. Maybe you guys can look through yours. Oh, is there 100% here? Early college high. Oh wait, where's the other one? La Entrada. Huh. Is it a continuation school? Oh, no, there's 3. There you go. Middle college. Where's that at? Oh, Santa Ana College. What's up? But check this out. But here's the drop. Here, look at this. My question is, Aliso Niguel, I don't know where that is. I know where Aliso Viejo is, right? Maybe that's down there. But if there's 98.5, how can we only have one dropout? Maybe the rest, so that would be 99.5. Make it the 0.5 maybe are continuing. I don't know. Okay. Let's see. Is your school in here? Esperanza's 97. Let's see, where's mine? I went to Valencia High School. 96.1. All right, it's kind of low for the district, but hey, the Orange County average is 88.6. Actually, that number's going up, which is kind of cool. I like that. All right, so you feel free to go through there and share that. And again, there's reentry programs that help students get in, even if they decided to not stay. And again, outcomes is really what happens when all these things are put together. Like 2 plus 2 is 4. 4 is the outcome. Now, again, there is a National Dropout Prevention Center, so which is kind of nice. They can come do speeches at your school, help counselors, and X, Y, and Z. Okay. So again, if students are not engaged, now think about that with our disabled community. If students don't feel there's something to be proud of or something that they can, if they don't have friends, anything like that, why would they want to stay in school, right? And maybe, again, there's a bunch of differences, like their family doesn't support them or anything like that. But again, we can help with dropout prevention. The next section is responsive instruction. Now, let's look at the classroom. Let's look at how the instruction can be best laid out. Responsive means that it's actually responding to what the needs are, okay? Let's see here. The universal design here for learning It just means that when we talked about universal design in chapter 1 is that we have to have access to everything for everyone. Now, in the classroom, it's universally designed for everyone in the classroom as well. So it really helps all learners. Again, there could be people who just have a slight speech disorder, but it might help them. People who have a learning disability, people who are typically developed. But again, this universal design is there to help everyone. Okay. Now again, applies to all students, okay? Assumes that in one classroom there are different types of learners, not just the visual and the auditory and the kinesthetic and the musical, but that takes also in there into consideration as well, okay? It also reduces barriers. Now, if some students need to walk around the classroom and read at the same time and that helps them, then they get to do that. If some need to lay under the desk and do that, they're pretty open to things like that. So the classroom has changed a lot since I've been in school, and I really like seeing how things are accommodating all learners, okay? Now, there's 3 different principles for universal design. There needs to be multiple means of representation. So sometimes you'll hear me, like I'm talking to you guys, there'll be a definition there, but I'll give you a different take on it, a different view on it as well. Same thing in the K-12 classroom. Maybe some people are going to need it better just in their ears or in their eyes. Some people need it in their hands, right? Some people are going to need it in different languages, right? Or maybe the first instructions in English and then some of the minute clarification is in their native language. And again, that's based on what that student needs, okay? Multiple means of action and expression. Now, if some students want to do their mission report and they want to make a video, they allow them to make a video. Some of them are really good at doing a poster. Great, right? But the multiple means of expression is the way to go. Letting different students come up with the same information in different ways. I like that. And Common Core does that as well. So Common Core is not the enemy here. It's a struggle, but it's not the enemy. Some of our alternative learners do best in Common Core, okay? And the principle 3, provide multiple means of engagement. Again, maybe having different music in the class or using the iPads or QR codes to do Dr. Seuss Day, things like that. So it's really kind of cool to know that universal design is really incorporating different techniques and modes and methodologies for all students. Make sure you know what curriculum means. And again, the National Center on Universal Design and Learning, CAST.org, which is really kind of cool. So it's a national movement here. It's not just, oh, in California, we're the 48th state in the union. We are a little bit behind, but yes, right? So UDL at a glance, go ahead and watch through that. That'll help you understand it really rather quickly. It just talks about CAST a little bit, and it's nice. That's one of the videos that's suggested in the back of the book, but I went ahead and just put it in here as well. Okay. Wow, differentiated instruction. Look at all these course terms. Oh, it's crazy. Yeah. But we'll get through it. Now, differentiated instruction is a way of saying it's instruction, but it's different, right? They basically do one, say this is what we're going to do, and then they explain it, and then they try to separate it out. Now, some kids are going to get it right away. Some kids are going to need 2 sets of directions, and some kids are going to need 3 sets of directions. So think of this as in primary, secondary, and tertiary terms, okay? And so it's adjusting, it's not making it easier, it's just tweaking it in a way that makes it more accessible to that student, okay? And they can then have an assessment, and the assessments need to be alternative as well. Okay. Now, again, differentiated instruction is, think of like a blueprint or like when you see a house being built and there's just the outsides of the walls but nothing's filled in. That's kind of what differentiated instruction is, because once you fill in the walls and you can paint it any color, you could decorate it any color, but the framework is there. Okay, and teachers have to know the student in order to be able to properly differentiate the instruction. Is the student ready? Maybe they're just not ready. Okay, what are their interests? So, like for example, my son's ready. He loves to learn, but that doesn't mean that he remembers everything. So sometimes they have to do a little bit just to get him into the framework. His interests are like Paw Patrol and Peppa Pig, but he also is a car kid. I mean, he can tell you what a car is by the sound of the engine. It's really crazy. And his learning profile. He's the kid who likes to get through things really fast. Doesn't mean he's going to do it well. So once a teacher knows those things about him, they can say, okay, well, for Peyton, I need to do this. But for maybe Sarah over here, I need to do this. So it's kind of interesting. Think about it as, again, that framework, or even I look at it as an umbrella. Here's the instructions, but let's kind of make it different, tailor it to each child, which is really kind of interesting. And it's not easy, but kids can group up, and sometimes there's more visual learners, and the kids who, all these kids over here want to talk about cars and things like that. So you can kind of group them up that way. So being a teacher you got to be on your toes. You got to be flexible. You got to be on it. Okay. Now, some of the techniques are instructional scaffolding, meaning sometimes scaffolding, it does harken back to that Vygotskian term of putting a kid in that zone of proximal development where they can learn with a more experienced peer. It doesn't have to be somebody older, but like think about the first time that you used a cell phone, or maybe the first time you helped your friend with a cell phone, or your grandma with a cell phone, right? You're a more experienced learner. Doesn't mean that you're older, and then you teach them, right? So that's like instructional scaffolding. Tiered content means like you slowly get more challenging, right? So like if you're doing American history, you would say, America has a long history. And then you would say, our country has been, it's over 200 years old. Our country was founded, in 1776. Do you see how it gets more specific, okay? And then curriculum compacting is like taking some of that information again and compacting it together, which I think is great. And it really, sometimes some kids can skip over things and come back, right? So it really, again, takes into account these different students' strengths. Okay, this is a cool one here. This tiered curriculum project, yes, it's out of Indiana, but there's like 150 different tips and tricks in here on what tiered curriculum looks like and how to do it. So again, this might be a good thing to hold on to for your future. Make sure you know what differentiated instruction is. Content means what's the lesson. The process is the way they're processed. For me, sometimes when I'm learning something new, I'm a little bit confused, and then once I catch on, I go, whew, I go like rocket fuel, right? Product is the outcome, right? So if you want to think about it this way, like in a recipe, if I'm going to make pozole, right? I need to have all the different ingredients, right? That's the content of pozole, right? What's my process? Well, do I do the meat separate and the caldo separate? Do I do the rice separate? Like whatever. Do I do white hominy? Do I do yellow hominy? I don't know. Like it depends on my process, right? How it's done, right? And then the outcome, like what is the product here? What is the outcome, right? So think about it in your way, right? You can use a different analogy for your life, okay? Instructional scaffolding, make sure you know what that is. Discussed already. Tiered content, same thing. The difficulty level is based on the student as well, okay? Curriculum compacting, it really has like, if you can know what the student already knows and compact that curriculum together, it really helps that broadening and deepening understanding of that curriculum, of that subject, okay? Learning centers. Now, we've seen that in some preschool. If some of you are familiar with preschool environments, you have this area as a learning center for this. Now, sometimes you can work independently or in pairs and things like that, but they go to this one area as learning center. Sometimes it's a separate classroom, but again, it depends on the school. Jigsaw activities. This is kind of a cute way of saying part of a puzzle activity. So if you took 110 for me, or maybe one of the other teachers, and you guys all did a poster of one particular sociological aspect, or even in 107, who's the theorist, right, who talks about child development. If one group did Vygotsky and the other group did Erickson, and then you guys put it up on the walls and then explained it to the classroom, that's what a jigsaw activity is. So you've probably done that in some of your courses, maybe. Oh, there's a typo, so I'll check that out. But you've probably done that in some of your courses, and it works great with kids. They love it because they feel so like big in their britches when they're teaching their friends, right? And not only are you like you've mastered the poster that you've done, but like you can teach your poster to somebody else, and then they've mastered theirs, and then you can share. It's kind of cool. I really like it. Okay. So yeah, differentiated instruction, lots there. Okay. Then progress monitoring. Okay. This is kind of like, how do we know it's working? Okay. Now, annually or yearly, there's these large scale assessments. Remember we talked about that? It could be school-wide, district-wide, statewide. But there's also frequent and direct measurements, right? At the beginning of the school year that we just started here, my son said, I got to take a math test, but it wasn't graded. I said, okay. They're just trying to figure out where you're at, over the summer. Maybe you lost some skills. Maybe you gained some, right? But again, these are quick, frequent assessments, the small tests, and then there's big ones as well. But the mastery measurement, they want to know that you've passed this math class or this math concept at a specific level. Now, in our book, we talk about mastery measurement. There's a really cool example, and I want you guys to see. On page 45, there's a sample mastery probe and a sample CBM probe. And on the sample mastery measurement probe, you'll see math, but you'll see all kinds of fractions. And they're really looking at either like, I think this is adding fractions. So they're looking at one piece of the fractions, right? So if there's math, and then you're learning fractions, but we're learning how to add fractions, we're looking at mastery measurement of how to add fractions, right? We could also look at it as, is a student struggling on that, okay? This could be, again, math, fractions, subtracting fractions, math, fractions, multiplying fractions. So there's these different skills inside of each math, each grade level that can be assessed. And again, you might be like, oh, I'm really good at adding fractions, but dividing fractions, I don't get to flip it. And I know. So. Right, so same thing with kids. They get a little stuck on certain things, and it's okay. That's how you know where to hone in, right? Okay. Then the curriculum-based measurement, it's again, it could be collecting these CBM probes, which is, if you look at this one in the book again on page 45, it's a lot of math. It's division, adding, multiplying, fractions, long division, all kinds of stuff. So again, you can see where the student's struggling, and then after you plot more than one results, you can see where they're struggling, right? So again, once you collect 2 or 3 points, you can see, okay, is the student progressing through this, or are they going down, right? And what kind of interventions do we need then? Okay. Struggling learners are, again, these are students who just need more support, and that's okay. And again, progress monitoring, okay? And make sure you know what CBM, curriculum-based measurement, is. I did put that as an acronym in Quizlet as well. And then the summative evaluation, that's just a fancy word of saying, like, at the end of the year, how are we doing? Okay. And the National Center on Response and RTI, Response to Intervention, that's another one, RTI. Let's make sure you guys know that as well. RTI for success.org. And by the way, that's going to show up in this lecture more than once. Is it important? Yeah, if it shows up more than once. Okay. Now, curriculum-based measurement, again, is really just helping to identify in the curriculum for this year how the students doing. And the teachers can use that measurement to really help with extra supports, okay? When they graph these scores, so like again, so let's say your quizzes in this class, like the first one was like 8.5, and then the next one's like a 9, and the next one's like a 7.5, like, is it the quiz, or is it, it could be anything, right? But we want to see how you're mastering the measurement. Now, in our class, our quizzes are technically different topics, but what we would track here in CBM is the same topic, right? And see if we're getting better, getting stronger. Again, this is data. This is not like, oh, I think this kid's doing well. No, this is, I know they're doing well because look at their scores. Right? So this is not the teacher, oh, the teacher doesn't like me, so my scores went down. Okay? This is science, this is data, and I really like that it's clear that way. Okay? Takes the opinion out of it. Okay? And there's the steps here, and this is outlined in your book on page 47. Select the probe, which is like the test. I don't like the word probe. It's so silly. They're just testing, like they're literally probing one little skill. Administer and score the the test, the little probe, graph that. Okay, you're going to see that. They could put a little, see how that little line goes up, and then there's a little dip, and then it goes up. And maybe they dip down because they were sick that week. Who knows, right? Set goals after 2 to 3 data points are graphed, meaning, oh, well, are we progressing or not? Make data-based decisions, right? Well, I can see that you're struggling here because your scores are going down or they're not going up. It's not like an opinion. And then communicate the progress to the student and to the family, right? So this is how we do CBM. Okay, make sure you know those steps. Okay. So that's responsive instruction, which I think is great. Now, multi-tiered frameworks. This is another doozy, but at the same time, it makes perfect sense. A lot of stuff going on, but it makes perfect sense, okay? Now this RTI, again, this response to intervention, meaning when you help a student, is it helping them or not, okay? Now, again, there's tiers of instructions. Think of that framework of a house. Let's say you have a 3-story house. Yeah, there's 3 stories, right? Let's see. RTI typically serves 2 purposes. It helps the struggling learners and it helps to identify students with disabilities. Now, again, there's primary, secondary, and tertiary. That just means 1, 2, 3. Okay. Now, see where it says primary instruction / prevention, right? If we can, this is like the rules of the game. If we can give people the rules, right? Even if you're playing a board game, you get the first set of rules, and then later you can go back for, oh, I need to get clarification on that. And third, oh, I need more supports. I need more support with the rule book, right? So it's a little bit like that, okay? Different students need different levels, okay? Levels are based on the student's need, right? Now, some students might be like rock stars in one area and then they might be totally fine with primary instruction. You just tell them once and they're great. But sometimes they need support in this third level, a really high level support in a certain area, and that's okay, okay? Excuse me. Every single student is screened, meaning every single student is given primary instruction and really screened to make sure that they understand the instructions and we can kind of see where that early intervention needs to start, okay? And again, we'll talk about early intervention because it's early intervention. Would I have my former classes or my traditional classes, I usually guys have you say together. Do you do early intervention at 2 years old or at 12 years old? 2 years old. Do you do early intervention at 6 months old or 6 years old? 6 months old, right? The later you intervene, the harder it is to catch up, okay? Let's see what we got here. All right, multi-tiered frameworks. Again, it just is looking at these different frameworks, and I want to show you, the book has it on page 49, and I think you do a pretty good visual representation, and I like the pyramid. I think it's perfect, okay? The RTI tiers is, the first level is every student. Everybody gets this prep or this intervention or this support, no matter what, okay? And then secondary intervention is for students who might need a little bit more help, okay? And then tertiary is for the students who need a lot of help, okay? And again, RTI, primary, secondary, and tertiary, okay? If secondary supports didn't help, then we moved it to tertiary, okay? Now, universal screening, it's really how you make sure that everybody gets identified, early on. Do they need help with speech? Do they need help with math? Do they need help with handwriting? It's all these different things, right? Okay. And again, early intervention. Do you do early intervention at 5 or 15? Right? Think of it, early intervention is even like politeness. Do you teach your kids like how to say please and thank you when they're 5 years old? Or do you teach them earlier? Right? Or do you teach them when they're 15? Right? We taught Peyton how to say please and thank you before he could speak. Right, and we require it at all times. And we've got a lot of compliments that even though he could be really crazy and hyper and his body's jumping all over the place, he says please and thank you. So we really push for that. So early intervention works for sure. Again, standardized tests was another a term that came up earlier. Make sure you know that. National Center on Response to Intervention, rti4success.org. Click through and see what that's all about. It's actually pretty interesting. It's kind of nice. Okay. So RTI, and I think which is really kind of interesting, and there's another way of looking at it as well. There's RTI and PBIS, and they have the same kind of situation, and that's kind of what we're going to talk here. Positive behavioral interventions and supports. Okay, this is really cool, and I saw it in practice this week, and it was kind of nice. Okay, multi-tiered framework for school-wide behavior management. Right? So what I like to think of is like when you're seeing on page 49, you're seeing the pyramid on in your book. It's almost like the pyramid needs to be 3D, and on the back side is PBIS, and you still have primary, secondary, and tertiary. Okay. Now this is again, how do I explain this? Like, do you guys ever go swimming in a public pool and there's signs everywhere that says no running, right? And then there's kids running all over the place. And then somebody falls and hurts themselves. And they're like, well, I didn't know I wasn't supposed to run. Well, first of all, there's signs everywhere. Then there's a lifeguard tweeting at you. Okay. So yes, you need to stop running. So the information was given. The information is the same for everybody. And that's basically, we have a set of standardized behaviors that we expect you to do, but we will walk you through them. We will show you all the rules. That is the primary level of intervention. So I was at my son's school dropping something off, and the entire school was going from place to place in the school, walking through the hallways and looking at expected behavior in a hallway, going to the library and looking at expected behavior in the library, walking to the computer lab and what is the expected behavior in the computer lab. So then you can't have students, maybe students who have some other challenges. They can't say, well, I didn't know. Well, yeah, I think we all did know, but maybe we need a second level of supports for somebody who maybe still forgets, or maybe somebody who's not really good at remembering things, or maybe somebody who's really impulsive, like my son. So he does get some extra levels of supports there. Okay. Now, again, PBIS is very similar to RTI, but PBIS is behavior. So make sure you know what PBIS is. Some schools already have it, and some schools are just like introducing it this year, which I love it. It's great. Okay. Again, it's for all students. Okay. It's how students are allowed to behave, and literally the students are walked around the school and said, this is, remember how on that day we walked around and you're supposed to use this level of voice, and you're supposed to walk, you don't run, things like that. Again, there's primary, secondary, and tertiary prevention and intervention. I love it. I think it works great. It's like a rubric in a way. I mean, for those of you who know my philosophy on rubrics, it's almost like a rubric, a behavior rubric. This is how I expect you to behave. How many times did you go somewhere like church or somewhere, or like a wedding or a party, and your parents are like, this is the expected behavior that I want from you? Okay. It's the same thing. Positive behavior intervention support. We give atta-girls, atta-boys for the positive. We don't do punishments for the negative. Okay. Primary, secondary, or tertiary. Sorry, that's in the wrong order, but I think you got it. Now, check-in, check-out is on the second level. It's basically, it's a self-monitoring technique that students can have like a little check-in, like a little report card for themselves for every day. And again, it could be stickers, stamps, thumbs up, or just a signature from a teacher, but it's a check-in and check-out on a daily basis. All right, the parents get a copy as well. Now, FBA, this is huge, and I want you guys to know this, that right now we're just introducing this term, but FBA is going to be is going to come into more of the behavioral pieces when we talk about autism, ADHD, some of those more emotionally disturbed. The functional behavior assessment. We want to see what the reason of these behaviors are. So, like for example, after PBIS and they walked these students all through the hallways, you know, there's always this one kid who always runs, right? And in every school and every environment, he's running. Okay, well, why are you running? Well, maybe they're not listening to the rules. Okay, well, that's one thing. But maybe if we really get down into what is the behavior, are they escaping from somebody? Are they escaping from a bully? Are they running towards something? There's different there's different functions of behavior. There's only 4, but I'll introduce those later. But the FBA really helps identify why a student is acting that way. Is it for attention? Is it for escape? Is it to get something? Right, that kind of situation. So FBA, I like how they're using it not just for the kids identified on the spectrum, but they're using it for all kids, right? They might do an FBA for a student who just doesn't interact with other people, and maybe that person's depressed, right? Maybe there's something going on at home, right? So again, I really like FBA, but we'll talk more about it now. Make sure you know what it is. Okay, and PBI is Technical Assistance Center. If you want to learn more about it, it's on there. It's actually kind of interesting. I kind of clicked through it there, and it's nice. There's these cool little handouts and stuff. And so, again, for students who need like a little desk chart to keep them on track, it's cool. Go to PBI's Technical Assistance Center. Okay. All right, so let's see. We're going to wrap it up, but this is pretty, and even our review and resources are pretty intense. So, our summary. Okay, Gen Ed teachers who use these new evidence-based practices will have better student outcomes. Lots the long and the short of it. Okay, all students are included. Schools must have anti-bullying, and schools must allow students to finish even if they dropped out and they want to come back. Okay, multi-tiered frameworks, RTI and PBIS. RTI is for the classroom. PBIS is for the behavior. It could be in or out of the classroom, right? And responsive instruction is universal design. Okay, that's for everybody. Special needs, language differences. Okay, and we looked at content, process, and product for students. Make sure you know all this stuff. If it's in the summary, it's a big deal, right? So these are the videos that the chapter recommends. I did put, this is one that I added, but I did put this one, all 3 of these in the little bullet points over there. UDL I put up there as well. But this one is really quick, Language and Revolution. And I want you to listen to this guy because he's featured in our book as well. I think he's way up in the front. He really talks about language, and I really like that he says learning disabilities don't define me, right? What's his name? Let's see if I can find it real quick. He is, yes, Lederick Horn. He's on the bottom of page 10. So now you get to see him speak. And what is an effective teacher? So check that out as well. And these are recommended websites. A lot of these, again, already, that's why I kept them orange, because they're already in the little bullets that we talked about. But this one's kind of cool, Edutopia. It's like everything about everything. It's really cool. So check out things like that. And some of the resources, some of the agencies and organizations I have here, but look at, there's International Reading Association, National Council of Teachers of English, National Science Teachers Association, a lot of cool stuff. If this is something that you're interested in your future career, check it out. Get involved. See if there's a student membership, okay? And then these are journals, meaning magazines, okay? Now, this is the IRIS activity for the discussion board. So this time I did it a little bit different. You guys can choose one of these circles, one of them, okay, and follow the instructions. I did put that in the discussion board as well, but this is exactly the same, okay? So if you're interested, while we're going through this, if you're interested in differentiated instruction or universal design or fidelity of implementation, pick one, okay? Pick one of those, okay? So let's say you picked this one, differentiated instruction. You're going to click the link, you're going to watch the challenge, do initial thoughts, just basically read through some of our videos and read through the wrap-up, and then answer questions 1 through 3. That's it. This one's questions 1 through 3, and this one's questions 1 through 2. So maybe that's going to be your choice, but choose the one that was interesting to you while I was talking. You know, there might be a part of the chapter that's more interesting to you. And again, it's due by Friday. Okay, those are your choices. Good. All right. So that's Chapter 2 in a nutshell, part of Unit 1, Foundations. So again, I'm posting this on today, which is Labor Day, so I know some of you will actually get to it and some of you won't, but again, I hope you guys have a happy Labor Day and enjoy Chapter 2.